Hey there, my name is Thomas and welcome to the 7 steps to building $1 million business. Now, first off, before we get started, you're probably wondering, who is this guy? And in case you're curious, I am actually somebody that built $1 million business in a socialist country. I'm actually Portuguese, that's why my accent is so thick, but the info I have for you is actually pretty useful and I hope it will help you build your first $1 million business. Now, just to be clear, you're probably wondering why should I take your word for it? Well, I don't know why you would not take the word of some random dude on YouTube. I mean, they're always saying the truth, but just in case, I've actually took the time to do an online calculator and to get you the math on what my business should be worth. I don't mind sharing this kind of number. I do mind sharing revenue numbers and EBITDA numbers, so those I will not be sharing. But according to the BizX calculator, you have to assume I asserted real numbers and use real data, which I could obviously say the revenue is $1 billion. So you gotta, to some degree, trust me on what I'm saying. But according to the BizX business valuation calculator, this business here, this company here, should be worth approximately $1.11 million. This is actually in dollars, which euro right now is very closely correlated to dollars, so you don't even need to do any math. Obviously, this is a round number because if you're going to sell your business or if you're going to buy a business, and there's obviously other metrics that you're going to use to evaluate the business. The main ones being what kind of value can you add, or what kind of value the business brings to your corporation, or in other cases, what kind of value the business brings to the person that's buying it, and how can you position your business in a way that you can sell it for a bigger multiple. But just so you understand, for the more savvy of you guys, the financial guys watching this, if there's any, the multiple used by this website, BizX, is actually a pretty fair multiple. It's a multiple below 5. I'm not gonna say what the multiple on earnings is, because that way you could reverse engineer the mathematics, but they actually use a multiple on earnings below 5. I'm saying 5 because the usual number used on business calculations is 5, and for the guys that know the startup dudes that say their business stores $20 million usually, they come to that conclusion because they use a 100x multiple on revenue or on earnings, and obviously that's a ridiculous number. So this is a multiple on earnings and it's below 5, so I think it's actually a pretty fair number. And my business is a business that clearly is worth more than $1 million because we have net profit in the 6 figures. I will not say specifically which number is, and maybe I'm just lying, as I said. Like, if you don't want to take my word for it, and if you don't believe me, this might not be the right thing for you to be watching. If you do not believe anything I'm saying, just so that I avoid useless comments of people saying, I don't believe that. If you don't believe, just get off. If you actually want to learn from a guy that actually has a business and manages his employees and actually has to deal with headaches from the US government that sometimes tries to find you for no reason, or problems with employees, or actual problems with acquiring customers and retaining customers, problems that actual business owners have, and not some random YouTube gurus telling you gotta clap your hands and be happy. Maybe if you are really interested in actual adding strategy and knowledge to your business, growing your business, and not just talking and hoping, then this might be the right video for you. I already wasted 2 minutes of your time, or maybe even more. So let's actually get started on the 7 steps to building $1 million business. So the first one, because I'm assuming you don't have a business, because just so you understand, $1 million is really not that significant. Like obviously when you're starting off and when you get into business, that's a big number and it sounds very sexy. That's why I'm using it in the headline, but that's really not a very large number, because when it comes to $1 million business, that just means you have earnings on the 6 figures, which, by the way, if you don't know what earnings are basically net profits that are real, or that are supposedly real at least. So when I say earnings, I really mean free cash flow, because if your business is small and doesn't have free cash flow, then no one will trust the earnings. And so if you have your free cash flow in the 6 figures, unless you're in a business that's very local and very hard to pass on, which nobody could give you a multiple one, unless you're in one of those very specific niches. If your free cash flow is in the few $100,000, then you almost always will have a business that can be valued at $1 million or over. So $1 million business is not really something very extraordinary. There's a lot of them. I'd say maybe like 5% of the businesses in the Western world are $1 million business. I may be wrong here, because there is also a lot of like shell companies and shell businesses. But to like most, like in a room with 100 entrepreneurs, at least 5 will be doing over $1 million a year. So I'd say that's a pretty not complicated business to build. And by the way, a guy that's making $1 million a year doesn't necessarily have $1 million business, just because some businesses have very high revenue, but there's actually not much in the bottom line. And by the same token, there's actually businesses that have like revenue in maybe $100,000 and $100,000, like people selling stuff on the internet, for example, that have a business that makes 200 a year, 200,000 a year, and it's almost all net profit. I mean, that's probably $1 million business if it's something that can be passed on to somebody else. And so you don't really have to revenue doesn't really correlate with earnings and with free cash flow, and free cash flow is what really correlates with the value of your business. So if you have a lot of revenue but not free cash flow, then you may not have $1 million business. And by the same token, if you don't have $1 million in yearly revenue but you do have a lot of earnings, you may actually have $1 million business, or even over that. But getting started, I'm assuming you do not have or own a business already, and so in that case, what I would really suggest you to do, and the reason I actually decided to do this video today, is because today I went to have breakfast with a friend of mine. He's an old friend of mine, both in the friendship length, and because the guy is actually a good friend of mine that's actually older per se. He's 60 something years old. Sergio, I'm not sure, I mean, I'm pretty sure nobody's gonna even watch this except like this 20 people that really want to grow their businesses and maybe live in socialist countries like me. So if you're one of those, you can know his name. So Sergio is a guy that built a pretty decent, really large copy printing machine. So it's not copy, it's a printing machine. Like, he's got a really big printing press. He's got like literally $1 million machines just doing printing. Like, he can print boxes, he can print big stationary objects, he can print those I forget the name, but like banners and stuff. Like, he's got a $1 million printing business, and it's a pretty basic business. Like, it's not something that required AI. He did not need to be a PhD in mathematics. He did not need to create the next electric car. And I'm saying this because most people I see starting in business have very complicated idea. Like, I'm gonna build this software that does this thing and it's gonna change the world, and the other dude's like, I have the solution for people sneezing and nobody will ever sneeze again. And then there's the other guy that we will change medicine forever. And as somebody that's made his money on medicine, I can actually tell you it's pretty tough to change an industry like medicine. And so if the guys that have billions of dollars can do it, I'm not sure you in your mother's basement will really be able to do it. But that's just my 2 cents, my opinion, you know. I mean, what do I know about medicine? I've just made actual millions of dollars in terms of revenue in medicine over the last few years. So maybe you know more than me about medicine. And when I say medicine, I say all the other areas where people have not proven and not had a track record, but they feel like they can do it and do it better than the other people. I'm gonna be very honest. I think if you're trying to build $1 billion business, that's different. And I've never built $1 billion business, so I'm very, very far from it. So maybe I'm not the right guy if you're trying to go to the moon and do the impossible stuff. But if you're trying to actually grow $1 million business, you do not need to be the next Elon Musk. You do not need an incredible idea. You need to pick a business that's actually proven, a business that actually has generated millions of dollars for many people in many regions, with many types of expertise and many types of character and skill behind the wheel per se. So my friend Sergio, for example, he's not a special guy. I mean, he's a old school, a very, very, very simple type of guy. I don't think he uses his computer much, maybe like to send emails and stuff. Like, that's what Sergio does. So you don't need to be a genius to build $1 million business. I myself, I'm actually in the medical service providing business, and so I've owned physical locations. I've sold the physical locations. I own the lab. I still own the shares in the lab. I do not own the majority of the lab, but I do own the lab. And my main business is actually a business that helps medical practices to grow and to scale. I don't want to get too into that, just because I try to keep stuff separate. Like, this is where I come for giggles and for sharing stuff. My business is the main thing, and I don't like sharing the main thing with a lot of people, just because the main thing is the main thing. But just to drive the point home, you need a business that has a very high lifetime value per customer, and that is not too complicated. And so I'm going to give you a couple examples of businesses like this. I'm just going to start off with businesses that I like that have this kind of characteristic, like very good businesses but may require a little bit of experience, are business to business high ticket services. And this is, for example, business intelligence. If you know how to build dashboards, this is something you can charge a lot of money for. Other things people have a hard time actually figuring out what the value is. Weddings, stuff related to weddings, just like Mr. Wonderful says. I mean, people don't really watch the things closely when it comes to those very special moments per se. The same thing goes with death. If you start, I don't actually know how the business is called. I'm assuming it's not a creamery. I think creamery is related to cheese, not really to cremating people, but you get what I'm saying. Like the business of death, the business of celebrating life, those are very profitable businesses, which you do not need to be a genius to work on those. Other businesses that are really great are businesses where you have a solution that's very valuable to the customer, who is a company, and so the company can pay you 10,000, 100,000 a year, 100,000 a month, whatever, just for you to keep doing that. And for example, that's like this will depend on your actual expertise. Like you need to bring some value to the market if you want to start a company. You can't just say I want to start a company and not know anything. But if you do bring the value to the market, then you can follow your expertise, whether that's programming, whether that's cooking food, whether that's building boats, and you can just go from building shitty boats in your backyard to actually doing that professionally, just copying whoever built the biggest boat, the biggest shipyard in your country, in your city, whatever. And so, bringing the point home, you do not need to be a genius. You don't actually need capital as well, because I'm talking about building boats and stuff, and you probably you might be tempted to say, oh, but I don't have the money. But many businesses do not require money. Like if you start selling websites, I mean, there are companies literally paying $100,000 to build a website. So a website is something you can easily learn by yourself. I myself have learned how to program, how to build websites. You have like WordPress, you have Divi, you have lots of apps and lots of programs that you can use to easily build a very professional website. So that's a way, and actually I'm saying that because that's one of the things I did when I started. Like I've sold t-shirts, I've sold candy, I've sold websites. Like the candy and the t-shirts, those are terrible business. Very low margins, very hard to make a buck. But if you're starting off, I mean, one of the businesses that is not that tough. Obviously, it's always tough to build $1 million business. When I say it's not complicated, I'm not saying it's easy. It is not easy in terms of effort. You're gonna have to put a lot of effort. You're gonna have to fight like hell. Like I went through a lot of shit to build the business I have right now, and even now I'm working 12 hours a day, 14 hours a day. Like today, it's actually almost midnight today. I started my day at 6 a.m. As I said, I went to have breakfast with a couple of entrepreneurs that are friends of mine, one of them being Sergio, which I told you about. And so this does not require you to be a genius, but it does require you to put in the effort. And just to drive the point home on the importance of the LTV, as long as you are creative enough to keep looking for an opportunity that delivers a lot of value to the client, you'll be able to build $1 million business, because you will not have to sell many units to acquire enough cash flow to be valued at $1 million or whatever number. I'm getting stuck at the million, but like if you want to make millions in business, you just need to find problems that are worth thousands of tens of thousands to our clients, as I just said. Like for example, the first two examples I gave you. If you are able to build dashboards that solve a data problem that will help your clients save $100,000 a year, then your clients will gladly pay $50,000 for you to build it. The same goes with accounting. If your background is accounting, if you can save your clients $50,000 a year in expenses, in actual legal fees and stuff, if you live in a country that has low taxes, if you live in Andorra, if you live in the United Emirates, in the Dubai, whatever, like you can literally start a business based on that delta and just helping people save money. And if you save somebody $100,000, you get 50. And if you don't know how to do that, search online how to do that. It's as simple as that, literally. There's a couple of stuff where you need to have a degree, like if you want to be a lawyer, you do have require a degree. If you want to be a doctor, you do require a degree. But for most professions in the real world, you don't actually require a degree. You just require the grit and the perseverance to actually learn the skill. And so if you have the skill, you can start the business. And I divide advise you seriously to not start groundbreaking stuff where you just fail and you say, oh, you know, we tried our best, but we failed like that. That's a terrible excuse. That's just a shitty excuse. You are like, I do not respect anybody that says, oh, you know, I tried, but we did our best, but it was not possible. It's always possible. I mean, you just chose something that was way too hard because you wanted to look like a rock star instead of actually doing the work. You wanted to be cool instead of being right, and you wanted to be cool instead of having results, and that's why you end up losing building a good business. And so most of my friends that are wealthy have actually built a very simple business. I'll move to the second point, but just to drive this point home once again, and I've said this many times at this point, I've got a friend, my wealthiest friend in terms of revenue is a guy that packages meat. Basically, he sells meat and he packages meat. So he makes many millions of dollars a year just packaging and selling meat and supplying meat. I also have another friend, a recent friend, that has a very big photography supplying business, and so he supplies photography equipment, stuff like that, which is a business I'm actually having. I don't want to dive too much into that, but that's actually a very profitable business and a very simple business again. Other businesses that I have, other friends. I have a friend that owns an hotel, so. An hotel, it's not. He did not invent the concept. I can guarantee you, it's a piece of real estate, big piece of real estate. He just got the financing, and she got the financing, and she monetized this thing. I also have another friend who's got a very similar company to mine, but he helps large companies instead of the kind of medical facilities I do help. And there's actually another guy. I just remembered, that helps hospitals with issues they have, like reasonable, like hiring issues. I don't want to get too much into details because I'm not sure, like, it's an online business, so he may not be happy if I share too much, but it's a guy that makes a lot of money basically helping hospitals hire people. I will not dive more into that, but like that's stupidly easy. And like, by the way, hiring and firing and like helping in the recruiting process companies, that's a really valuable thing. All companies are looking for good people, and it's not that hard to be somebody that acquires talent for a company. So once again, that's another boring business, simple business that has a high value of customer spend for you to be able to have few orders with a lot of revenue coming in. All right, but now let's get into second one, because you just chose your business. You're going into the funeral business. You started a funeral home. You started a meat packing business. Let's say I like the meat packing business better. So let's say you started the meat packing business, which, by the way, you can retire. You can start with very little capital. You just start in a very small facility. So that's a good example. And so let's say you start this business. What do you do next? Well, this is what distinguishes the people that started a decent business and got stuck forever, and the people that started a shitty business and made millions in business. This is the main difference between entrepreneurs that succeed and entrepreneurs that fail. And it's probably the most important skill in business when you're trying to get to the first $1 million. When you're going beyond that, I'm sad to say it, but hiring and leading and managing people might become more important, which kind of sucks because sales and prospecting is actually much cooler. But when it comes to making your first million in terms of revenue and in terms of business value, I mean, by far the most important skills will be sales and prospecting. And so you have to master, after you choose what business you're going into, before you start doing logos, before you start getting fancy and getting cute, the first thing you're gonna do is master sales and prospecting. And this is tough, and this is why most people try to skip this step just to have their businesses close a couple of years later. You probably know the stats that 80% of businesses fail within the first 5 years or whatever. My business has been doing fine for the last 5 years. It's probably going to be doing fine for the next 50 years. Then it's because you never have whatever problem, resources problem, a capital, a financing, an employee problem. You have a money coming in problem. If you have enough money coming in, you have all problems solved. And this is the skill that will allow you to bring more money in. So sales and prospecting, I've actually done a video before this one called how to get your first 100 customers or first 100 clients. I'm not sure what the title was, but it was basically that. So if you are actually taking this seriously and starting a business, I will not obviously dive into this very specifically right now, but I would advise you to go there and see that video, because it will help you and enlighten you per se on how to get your first few customers and how to improve on this skill. This is a skill that it doesn't take 1 hour. You can just watch one masterclass and become good at sales. This requires hundreds of one-to-one sales. Like I've personally generated probably $500,000 in like one-on-one sales with potential clients. I've maybe even more than that. I've done sales. I don't want to say coaching. I don't like the word coaching. It's got a bad connotation now. But I've done some sales coaching through the years to companies or friends of mine. I've done a lot of sales, like door to door. Like before I had this current business, I literally went door to door to sell stuff, like websites and stuff. So I have sold a lot of stuff, and even I am far from mastering this. So this is not something you master in a couple hours. This is something you master over 5, 10, 100,000 hours. This is a skill that I'm not even sure you can actually master. Sales is the number one thing when it comes. It's the only thing when it comes to generating revenue and to growing the top line of your business. And so for that reason, obviously there's more stuff that comes into play later on. When I say sales, I also mean sales and business development, because those end up to be two separate skills. But basically what I'm trying to convey here is, after you decide what business you're going to get into, you gotta become a master at getting clients and finding and getting clients to that business. You gotta be a master at actually getting the attention to the people that will buy your stuff, and to actually get the people. Now that you've got the attention, you gotta become a master in converting that attention into interest in moving forward with your product or service. And then after you started getting clients and you start having some traction, I'm gonna tell you something that I wish someone had told me earlier, because this screwed up my first few years in business. Because I went for the juggler per se. I was trying to build a company that sold a lot, and then sold a lot and basically grew by doing sales. And something I did not realize earlier is that if my product was better and my pricing was better, I would generate disproportional amounts of profits and revenue for my business, for a very simple reason, which is that if your pricing is not right, you may be leaving 50% of maybe 50% off, but you may be leaving like 20% more revenue on the table. And if you're running a business that has 20% margins and you increase your revenue 20%, then you will not have increased your costs. And so your revenue will went basically from your net profit went basically from 20% to 40%. The math is not exactly right, because we're talking about 140% here, but if you're following, we're talking about a huge increase, almost doubling, literally doubling your profits just because you got the pricing right. And the product is the most important part, because if you have a great product, you will increase the number of referrals your current clients will give you. You will end up the number of times their clients will buy your stuff, or if you don't have a recurring item that people purchase, if you have a service, it will increase the amount of time people stay with you. If you have, I hope you don't have software. As I said, that's getting fancy. If you've never made $1 million in sales, you probably shouldn't be dabbling in software and stuff. That's my opinion, and I've proven to be right a couple times in this kind of stuff. But just to stay with the example, if you have a recurring business, like if you do nails to people, like if you are able to improve your service, people will come more often and they will stay longer with your business. And so if you get this right, and this is really important, after you become good at sales, you have to really dial in. Like this becomes the most important skill, because this will basically, like, your product will grow your company for you and will grow your company by itself if you have a really good enough product. Like my companies, that's something I'm proud to say. Like if I stopped selling, like if Thomas literally stopped selling, I just put somebody to do fulfilling, and I just kept the machine running as is, my business would either stay in the same place or grow. That means my product is good enough for the company to be sustainable, and that's why I actually am happy and I share that kind of violation, because that becomes real once you have that kind of quality in place, where the product is good enough for more people to come in than for people to drop out of the machine per se. All right, and so that's the third thing. And these two are really important, because many people optimize for this one and not this one. Like salespeople and people that have a background and are more extroverted in sales usually go too much into selling and too little into developing the product, which is something I am to blame for. Like I am the guy that I used to call on whatever. Like if you wanted to sell, if you wanted me to sell you furniture, I'd find a way to get a supplier and I would sell you furniture. Like I've been selling for so long that I really grew this muscle without growing this muscle, and I've spent the last 2 years just dialing in the part of like the product and the service and the experience and all that stuff and the results, and obviously all that stuff to really deliver amazing results, amazing experience, amazing quality. All that stuff is as important as sales. And I say yes because many people also, especially the more I don't want to say academic types because that seems like I'm shitting on universities and stuff, and I'm sure a lot of people here have courses and bachelors and stuff like that. Like I'm not saying that's obviously not a bad thing. That's a good, like, whenever in doubt, obviously you're gonna choose the guy that has a master's or a bachelor's. So yeah, that's a good thing. But many people that come from more academic background, or people that don't really consider themselves extroverted, which is something I don't really believe people are or not extroverted. I think that's a muscle that you develop. But people that don't really have the sales muscle yet, or the extroversion muscle, or they just consider themselves shy or whatever, tend to optimize into developing the most amazing thing. And these really are the guys that say they're gonna develop the next step and the next thing that's gonna change the world, it's gonna be amazing, and then there's no sales and there's nobody using it. And so if you're one of these guys, which are more rare, but if you're a whatever it takes sales machine, close the deal, whatever it takes, I mean, that's a great thing, but you really gotta dial in the product if you want to grow a sustainable company and not just have a small sales organization around you. And I know that because that's literally what I did. And if you are a product guy, well, you gotta become good at sales. I'm sorry, I know you're shy, I know you don't want to talk to people, you gotta talk to people. I know you don't want to do videos, you gotta do videos. I know you don't want to go to expos and to actually go to events and to actually meet potential clients and to actually sell your stuff and to God forbid, actually have sales interactions and have to overcome objections, but you have to. That's the most important thing you could be doing with your time if you are the guy that loves building the products, but you don't like selling to people. And that's the lesson, by the way, for the people watching this in Portugal, which probably, even though I'm speaking English, I'm actually confident most of the people watching this are in Portugal. So if you are Portugal or Brazil, Portuguese people basically, because I am Portuguese, and so the only people that can understand this kind of accent are people that speak Portuguese. But if you are, I mean, like, this is a point that I cannot drive more home. Like in Brazil, this is not really that much of an issue, but in Portugal, it's like people are afraid of selling in Portugal, and by God, I mean, that's the dumbest thing you could be afraid of. Like, selling is what will build your business. Do not ever be afraid of selling your product if you know your product is good and it's gonna help the person you're speaking with. I mean, it makes no sense. Like, if your product actually does what you say it does, and if it's gonna be more valuable to the person purchasing it than it's gonna cost them, why would you not promote and push your product? I mean, it's just mind-blowing. And so that's why I say, like, if you're Portuguese, pay special attention to this that I'm saying. I know you feel like it doesn't apply to you, but it does. Get good at sales. It's gonna be the most useful skill you probably get in your life. All right? And so now you've chosen a good business, you've understood how to get clients to that business, you've actually built a good product that your clients want to keep buying, even though you don't need to be selling them continuously, and they also refer people to your business because it's a good enough business in terms of service or product for people to actually refer and get their friends to actually use it as well. And so now you get into the stage where you are actually starting to build the business. So now you here are really a one-man sales show with maybe an assistant or something like that, but now you are actually getting into scaling this thing. This is actually the fun part, which is that now you gotta start getting KPIs. What are KPIs? Key performance indicators. These are basically numbers that will help you see how your business is doing. And so the two main places where you need to find KPIs are the financial KPIs and the operational KPIs. Now, I will not dive very deep, very specifically into this, or else we wouldn't have enough time. But when I say KPIs, financial KPIs are really your revenue, tracking your expenses, tracking your gross margins, tracking your how much you spend in salaries, how much you spend on random expenses, how much you spend on office space, how much you are spending on whatever categories apply to our business. If you have a meat packing business, you probably have certain categories like food, transport expenses. For example, transport expenses would make sense in a financial statement in the financials reporting of a meat packing business. There's also the very important ones, which are the net cash flow, the theoretical profit, and the actual free cash flow, the actual cash flow in the bank account, and then the free cash flow is the money that is in the bank account today that was not last year or last month. My God, last year. I mean, if you're not a publicly traded company, ignore what I said. Last month, and so if your cash flow is 3,000, but you can only take 1,000 out of the business because the other 2,000 are used for something else, are going to be used for paying whatever else commitments you already have, then that's the free cash flow. So there's the profit, then there's the cash flow. They are usually different because when you do sales, the money doesn't immediately get into the bank account, and that's a very, very important number, cash flow. And then the other one is free cash flow. This is the holy grail, and I'll dive into this deeper and more thoroughly. But these are the KPIs you want to measure. You also want to measure the net worth of the business. So when I say the net worth, I don't mean the value like I showed you here, like the value someone would pay for the business. I mean the net asset value. So if we were to sell everything, if we were to sell the office, if we were to sell the whiteboard, if we were to sell the camera, the chairs, whatever, like if we sold everything, how much money would it be here? That's the net asset value of the business. Obviously, you start getting to magical stuff once you start calculating this, because if you want to be real honest, you should not include anything that's not tangible. But usually businesses, because they need to make their ego feel nice, they also start including goodwill, which is the what their customer list would be worth, what their customers would be worth, what the business itself would be worth, and then they start doing mathematics and they end up with a number that's closer to a valuation than the actual net asset value of the business. I like to keep mine simple, so my business, the way I calculate this is very simple. I just imagine if I were to sell everything today at its current market price, how much would I get? And that's that minus liabilities the business has, which are stuff like taxes you owe, whatever debt you may have, basically that's it. Assets minus that equal the actual current value, liquid value of the business. If you were hit by a truck and you needed to pay for surgery, that's the actual money you could get out of the business. Because selling is very pretty, but you don't sell the business in 24 hours. Or the net, the cash value of the business, this actual kind of value I'm talking about, this is easy to get in 24 hours to liquidate the whole thing. Now, why this is important? I think it's important because you understand the actual minimum value of what you have here, which is useful for you to do calculations in terms of getting debt, in terms of incurring into obligations. Because if you think, oh yeah, we're worth $10 billion or whatever, then you start doing really dumb stuff because you think the business is worth a lot of money, and then when somebody is actually not willing to pay that money to you, then suddenly the thing is not worth anything. And so if you're always conservative with your numbers and you use your base number as the least the most stable number there is no way your business can be wiped out, which is very important, because if the business grows and is too magical, it's probably gonna be folded equally fast. And so the goal is not to make a lot of money in 1 month, is to make the most money possible in the longest as long as you are running the business, and hopefully for many decades that you have your whatever holding company you have. Alright, but now that you've built your dashboard and the operating KPIs are the stuff that you actually measure to improve your business. So for example, I was talking about the meat packing business, so how many packages we packed today, what is the speed per package that we have, what is the time per delivery that we have, what is the profit per delivery. Those would be the operational metrics. So you have financial metrics, the actual income statement of the business, the cash flow statement, your balances, like actual simple reporting that you can open on the spreadsheet, on the Google sheet and see. And then there's the operational ones, which obviously you also should be able to see it in the dashboard, but it's probably going to be a separate dashboard. And if you're an industry that's, as I said, boring and has a high value per customer, there's probably already solutions available that you don't even need to build the dashboards. You just buy one. Like if you're in the meat packing business, there's probably a billion dashboards and CRMs and stuff where you can just input the data and connect a couple things, and the dashboard tells you everything that you need to know. So now that you have good reporting and you actually have a business that's generating profit and your clients are happy, which is already most of the way through to getting to the millions of dollars in terms of business value. Now we gotta hire people, which sucks. And my tips to hire are actually very contrarian, because I'm not a guru. Like, if you go watching consultants and people that have never built $1 million business, they're gonna tell, oh yeah, people very important and you gotta empower them and you gotta be leadership and blah blah blah. I mean, that's cool. Like, if you have a $100 million organization, $1 billion organization, maybe that's what it's all about. But in the small business world, and literally I had this conversation with a lot of friends of mine today at breakfast, literally about this. We were all basically complaining about how tough it is to find good people and stuff, which is a very common topic amongst entrepreneurs to complain about how hard it is to find good people. Like that, if you want to know someone is doing well in their business, like that's all they complain about. If you want to, the best way to find someone that's actually successful in business is to find a person that's complaining about how hard it is to find good people. Like, that's the most common topic entrepreneurs that I have some level of success like to complain about. So, and by the way, I'm obviously joking, like, complaining is not good, but many times I end up doing that. And so, when it comes to hiring people, I've come to the realization after hiring and firing and churning a lot of people that you don't want to hire a lot of people and have a lot of paper pushers, because those will not be connected to the mission. And obviously this will depend on the business. So if you have a business like meat packing, for example, obviously there will be people on the floor, on the ground, on the battlefield per se, that will not be very, I don't want to say intelligent, that's quite offensive, but you will not be hiring expensive employees for very basic functions. Like, that's different. Like, if you own a supermarket and you have a cashier, like, the cashier will not be paid 100k a year, like, that would be retarded. And just to be clear, like, depending on your country, I'm not saying specific numbers, because in my country, like Portugal, that's one of the reasons why I built the business here. Thankfully, with all the bad stuff that comes with building a company in a socialist country, one of the advantages of socialism is that labor is also very cheap, because there's really no productive economy, and so you end up being able to hire good people for a low price. Now, if you're in a country, for example, the United States, if you're in a country like Switzerland, where labor is quite expensive, you need to really have a customer that pays you well in order to hire good people. Now, if you're in a socialist country, like me, if you're in Brazil watching this, if you are in Venezuela, whatever you are, if you are in a country where labor is cheap, this applies threefold for you, which is, don't hire a lot of people to do a lot of functions. Hire extraordinary people that are capable of solving problems and that are connected to the mission. And it is your job to connect them to the mission as well. So if your employees and your team does not have variable compensation, if they're all on fixed compensation, you're going to run into an issue that you're going to be eventually surrounded by 9-to-5ers, which is what really drove me mad when I was trying to grow the business, is that I was surrounded by mostly 9-to-5ers. Not all of them, but like, it was even the ones that have the good attitude, like, it was clear they were having a good attitude about staying overtime. It's not something they wanted voluntarily to do. They were like, yeah, that's fine, I won't mind, Thomas, don't worry, I'll stay here a bit more. And like, when somebody says that, it's obviously like, he's a cool dude, he's got a good attitude, but it's clear in his expectations that this is not part of the what he was expecting from the job. And that's because those people are not connected to the result. And so for them, when it's 5 o'clock, like, even if he's got a good attitude, like, he's gonna stay. It's like, yeah, it's 5 o'clock. I mean, I like the dude, so I'll stay a bit more, but it's not for me, it's for him. Like, I don't want that. I want people to stay for them. I want people to to push the extra mile and to do the hard stuff for them, not for me. Because I don't want this to be my company. I want this to be our company. And so if I want this to be our company, they need to participate on the results of the company. And the way you do this is very simple. Each employee, guys, I will tell you how I do it in my company. It is actually a very uncommon way. Like, most companies either don't do anything or do like a yearly bonus. I think that's very common, especially in Portugal. Like, I think it's very common to do a yearly bonus. There's actually some companies more forward thinking that give shares and stuff. The way I do it in my company is because I as you understood by now from the way I speak, I am a cash flow guy. I am a free cash flow guy. I focus on cash flow. So the way I compensate variable employees to stick with the mission, the way I compensate employees and everyone that's working in the business, basically I'm mixing words, is through fixed plus a percentage of the earnings of the company. So I call them phantom shares, and phantom shares are basically shares that you cannot keep with you, but my employee base has a percentage of money that they get based on the revenue and the profits that we are having. And that way you are able to have a team that's connected to the bottom line, and that gets them to actually want to contribute to the work. I don't want to get too specific here, but my company used to have a board. We currently don't have a board anymore. Everyone in my board had phantom shares in the company, and so they were highly motivated to grow the company with me. Like, that's the board you want to have. Like, I did not have to give up shares, and so if somebody leaves the board, they just give the shares back, and that's okay, that's cool, because I was super happy to have them and they were happy to grow the thing with me. And now we can go our separate ways, and you are actually compensated. You did not receive magical shares that one day you can cash out, or you did not get a salary or some money or whatever for the result and the job that could or could not be done. Like, I don't want to compensate people for failing. That's not okay. That's not cool. Like, we live in a society right now that really thinks the most amazing thing is to try your best, and I disagree with that, because if you really try your best, you cannot fail. Like, it's impossible to fail if you really give it your best. Like, if you gave it your best but you failed, you did not give it your best. I do not believe, like, I am a big believer that everybody's got a lot of potential. Like, everybody's got almost immense potential. And so if you were to put everything you've got into accomplishing a mission, into accomplishing a task, and like, unless you are doing something so astronomically complicated, like landing a freaking rocket on the moon, like, unless you're trying to get to that sort of like complication level. I mean, if you're trying to do something like solving a freaking problem on the computer and you cannot do it, you clearly did not give your best. And so I'm not a big believer in patting people on the back when they say I gave my best, because you did not give your best. And so the way to get people to give their best is to hire the best and to compensate them well. And you probably heard this before. I know it sounds cliche, but if you don't do it, you're gonna learn this lesson, as I've learned it many times. Like, I keep finding myself hiring a cheaper person because I feel I'm gonna have a better profit thanks to him, and it's gonna end up being cheaper. And it's always more, I would even say more expensive. The price might be the same price, but it's always more costly on my time, on my patience, on my good humor, on your will to actually work with people, because you start disliking the people you meet in the office. And especially in Portugal, is a place where you have a hard time finding people, and so if you hire incorrectly, you have like a really big pain in the ass to handle. And if you're in a country where it's not easy to fire, like France or countries like that are getting more communistic than socialistic at this point, you're gonna have a really hard time handling employees that are not motivated to grow the company with you. And so that's my recommendation: hire few, hire the best, search for them. They exist. You gotta poach them. You may have to do a fuck ton of interviews to find them. You might have to ask for referrals from people that you trust and know, but they exist. And so you gotta find people that can stick a long term with your company and are willing to work as hard as you for the common goal that you share. Okay? This is a bit of a lesson about culture. So we've seen choosing how to choose a good business, how to get clients, how to build a good product, how to manage the company, how to build a productive culture, and now we're gonna go into how to really grow this thing. Because you, by following this path, I hope you are understanding the logic of each of these steps. Now you are ready to really push it, because once you get all of this stuff in place, you get to the fun part, which at the same time it's the least fun part, which is that now you have the machine ready to hit capacity. Like, you have capacity to work, you have a good product, you have product market fit at this point, you have good margins, you have a team that's ready to handle more orders and to acquire more customers and to really grow this thing. And so now it's time to burn the midnight oil. And there's a lot of companies that get stuck forever because they just get into the 9 to 5 mode, and they get to 200, 300, $400,000 a year, euros a year, and then just stay there. And it's the most mind-boggling thing, because I've seen a lot of companies, I have a lot of friends that basically built the whole thing, and then they just went 9 to 5. They just hired a couple people and they clock in and they get out early, and sometimes they're gonna play golf and stuff, and like it's crazy. It's like you are finally at the stage where you can push this. So now you gotta push, you gotta shove, you gotta do whatever it takes to bring this to the next level. You gotta add the zero, you gotta do whatever it takes to add a freaking zero to the company. This is the cool part. This is the reason why you did all this stuff before, is so you can finally push it to the next level. And so now everything is in place. And so now you gotta push it to the next level, and you gotta push the people around you to take you to the next level. You gotta inspire the people around you, not just your employees. You gotta inspire your employees, you gotta inspire your customers, you gotta inspire your vendors, you gotta push it, and you gotta bring such an intensity to the marketplace that people actually start to recognize you as the main provider, as the best guy for whatever it is that you do, whether it's packing meats, funeral services, flower, landscaping, whatever. There's a lot of roofing businesses, all those businesses, construction business, all those businesses, if they have the business model set right, can be extremely profitable businesses that you just need to push when all this stuff is in place to grow them to really retarded dimensions. Like one of the things that I've actually said about is that because I started this company in Portugal, we're now finally exporting and finally internationalizing the company. But because my market was Portugal, I was not really able to build this company, to grow this company while the company was still operating mainly in Portugal to the sizes that I would have liked to have, and I think things were in place for me to get to, because there was not enough capacity, there was not a big enough market for me to actually get to larger size, like actual like 8 figures in terms of value for the company in Portugal. There is, I mean, I don't think there is a way with a company like mine, unless you change the business model, or you have to internationalize or change the business model. Like if you're in a country that's bigger, because here we have about 10 million people living here. Like this is basically a city. Portugal basically has 2 cities. Like if you have all this stuff in place and now you just push it, I mean, if you manage to become the number one guy, the best guy, when it comes to your product or service, you can really go not only to millions of dollars, to tens of millions of dollars, and that's really exciting. Like I've seen people do this. There are markets in Portugal where people are able to do this because they're big enough. But like this is the cool part. Like there's not much magical stuff after here. Like obviously now you'll have different issues. Now you probably have to start managing teams instead of managing people. Now you start to manage the company through proxies. You start to manage the company through KPIs and people instead of actually being on the ground, because all the stuff that I've shown you so far is from the perspective of an operator, which is me. I've never managed the company through proxies or actually had a large team that did everything for me. Like I've always been the guy in the trenches that if somebody's doing something wrong, I just come over and I have to tap them on the shoulder, like do it well. So I don't actually have the experience to tell you how you go from 1 to 10 million, from 10 to 100. I will not even try to do that. I have obviously my thesis and my ideas, but I'm showing you what I did. And so I'm really excited about this because this is literally what I did. Like as you can probably tell by the way you're seeing this video, I'm not a guy that's like a YouTube guy. I'm not a guru. I really literally do not have anything to sell you. I wish I have it. Probably I'll try to bring, like if this channel works in any capacity, I'll probably just try to sell some stuff here, just because I'm that kind of guy. I'm the sales guy. But really, I have a quite profitable company that will hardly ever be surpassed by YouTube. I do this because I think this will be valuable, and I think it helps. I mean, my authority, my credibility are probably not in the highest form they could be right now, because as you can see, my accent is weird, my way of speaking is not quite understandable, but I think by doing a lot of repetition, I'll actually become good at explaining stuff and good at doing these videos and good at speaking English. And I hope my clients, my friends, my employees can actually search for my stuff and they get value if they can see that everything that I'm showing is legitimate. And so that's what I'm trying, that's the aim of this channel. And I hope the content you're seeing here is actually going to help you, because this is really the way you build a larger company. This is not a $1 billion company, but I mean, you gotta start somewhere, and this is where you start. It's not magical stuff, simple. Like all these steps are reasonably simple. They're not easy to implement, but they're not that complicated either. They're not something that you need to be a genius to do. Like there's a lot of millionaires that don't really have more than two digits of IQ. Like you don't need to be a genius to build a large business. In fact, I think many people suck at business because they're too smart for their own good, and they think they're too smart and they gotta start a smart business instead of a dumb business. If you start a dumb business where all your competitors are not really that the brightest tools in the tool shed, you'll do well. That's really my main point here, and I'll probably stop getting into that because I'm starting to become offensive saying this kind of stuff. Like, I mean, just because someone is does not score high on an IQ test, that doesn't mean they're not smart. And there's a lot of street smart business guys per se. I'd say most of the small business owners really have that all small street smart vibe. So that's really the way to start. And so to stop rambling, you already chose a good business. You already know how to get clients to your business. You already have a good product or service. You already have the KPIs to measure the quality and the growth of the performance of your business. You already have a team that's a small team that's actually capable of performing and not just being your assistants, basically. And now you've already put in the work to actually build this thing and to take it to the next level. So now there's only one final lesson that Thomas can teach you, which is free cash flow is all that matters. So when my business finally starting to generate a reasonable amount of revenue, the first thing I came to realize was revenue and profits and free cash flow are separate things. And if you optimize for revenue, you're gonna get revenue, but you might be taking very little money out of the business because you're pouring everything back into it. And if you try to build it and to grow it, which is fine, by the way, but you don't want to put it all back. At least I don't think you should be putting all back. Like the way I've done it, it's very basic. You'll probably find it how amazingly simple it is. But the way I've structured my distributions in my business is very simple. 50% of the profits stay in the business, like 50% of the free cash flow stays in the business to get reinvested, to build more stuff, to buy more equipment, to hire more people, and then 50% gets distributed to whoever owns the shares, which obviously I always own the majority of them. And I actually own all the shares. What I was talking about earlier are phantom shares, which is basically a right to getting part of the distribution, but I control those, and so I am the sole owner here in my business. And so the free cash flow is the main thing that matters, because that's what will determine the value of your business if you want to sell it. That's what will determine how much you take home, because you cannot live off revenue, and you can definitely not live on theoretical profits. You can only live on actual money in the bank account, and so free cash flow is what matters. And more importantly of all, that is the KPI that once you get all the tracking in place to measure it well, you can optimize for. And so once you optimize for free cash flow, instead of optimize for anything else, your business will become very, very lucrative. And so once you do all this stuff, and then once you have everything in place, and you just start pushing and always focus on maximizing free cash flow on the next 12 months, on the next 2 years, maximizing the free cash flow that the company is generating monthly, you will eventually, without a doubt, if you really put your mind to it, if you really put, as I said before, if you really give it your best, your actual best, all you got, then you cannot fail. You will build $1 million business, and you might even build a bigger business if you keep at it long enough. I do not have more tips, there are probably more steps after this, which the guys that have built $50, $100 million businesses do know the steps after this. I do not know, but these are 7 steps that I've used to build my own $1 million business in a socialist country. Thank you for watching, and I hope this video was helpful for you. Bye bye.